My brain is melting. Hey guys, so today I am going to be talking about a franchise that really does mean a lot to me, and since with the biggest movie event of 2023 coming out, I thought it was only fitting. So today I'm going to be putting all the classic Barbie movies into a tier list, but this is not going to be like any other tier list. Oh my god, how exciting! Before I embarked on this brain melting journey, I put these movies into tiers from memory. So what I'm going to be doing is comparing the before and after to see if my opinion has changed in any way, shape or form. Starting off with our first ever Barbie movie released all the way back in 2001. This movie's older than I am. I'm a fucking dinosaur! Anyways, starting off with Barbie in the Nutcracker. This was the first Barbie movie I ever owned. These movies have influenced me so much, from the way I dress, my hobbies, the way I act. Like, I'm not kidding when I say this. I started ballet because of these movies, and I've done ballet for maybe 8-9 years because of these movies. I exercised because of these movies. For those of you who don't know, the Nutcracker is probably one of the most famous ballets out there, and if you haven't seen the ballet, then chances are you have at least heard the music from it, because they usually play the music for it around Christmas time, and you probably heard it in other YouTube videos. I would put it in now, but I don't want to get caught for copyright, so sorry, Google it. The main plot of the movie follows our main character, Clara, who gets a nutcracker for Christmas as a gift from her aunt. She goes to sleep that night, and then she wakes up in the middle of the night seeing that her nutcracker has come to life and is being attacked by an army of mice led by the Mouse King, who, by the way, is voiced by Tim Curry. He put his whole Timothy into this role, and believe me when I tell you, he fucking carries. Clara has to go with the Nutcracker back to Parthenia, which is where he's from, to find the Sugar Plum Princess, who's the only one that can defeat the Mouse King. So it really is your standard Barbie movie plot, as you will soon come to realise. Overthrowing totalitarian governments. Basically the plots of the early Barbie movies. I wish I was kidding. So from memory, I gave this movie a C ranking. Like, while I liked it, it was never my favourite, and I was never really in a rush to watch it again. Though, I think around Christmas time this year, I think I will want to watch it again, because it's just a really Christmassy movie, especially with the music. I really associate the music from this movie with Christmas, and just the Nutcracker ballet in general. It's a very Christmassy thing. Upon rewatch at the big age of 20, I actually found myself noticing a lot of things that I didn't notice when I was a kid. Like, for example, they actually use painted backgrounds in this movie instead of, like, you know, just animating back in, and like the painted backgrounds look really pretty. I never noticed it as a kid, but when I did, I'm like, oh shit, that's painted, and it looks so cool. As well as the painted backgrounds, the music, I find myself bopping along to it whenever I watch this movie. I'm like, yeah, let's go so fucking hard. As for the characters in this movie, there's characters like Major Mint, Captain Candy. They're all just really fun. Also, leave it to Barbie to create unintentionally gay characters. Looking at you, Major Mint and Captain Candy. What I really like about this movie is the fact that they actually use motion capture when there's dancing on screen. Like, they actually got in a professional ballerina to do the motion capture instead of half-assing it, which is what a lot of movies would do today. They wouldn't even bother with the motion capture. But since ballet is a very, very, very technical style of dance, it really does mean a lot to me that they actually decided to go all out and just not half-ass it. As a dancer, I really, really appreciate that, and it really makes me happy. So yeah, big W for Barbie on that one. When it came to the ending, Clara saved the Nutcracker, Major Mint and Captain Candy after they were kidnapped and brought to the Mouse King's castle. The final battle ensues, and then the Nutcracker was beaten to the brink of death, but then uses his last bit of strength to protect Clara from the Mouse King. It's then revealed that Clara was actually the Sugar Plum Princess the whole time, and that the Nutcracker was actually the missing Prince Eric. But then in a crazy plot twist, the Mouse King returns and ends up sending Clara back to her home in the real world, just as Prince Eric tells her that he loves her. But it's all okay, because after Clara wakes up, she finds her aunt, and guess who's with her? Prince Eric! And it gets better. He gives her back the locket that she lost while they were in Parthenia, so it's obviously him. And it's a happily ever after all. Yay! No, I think I will stick to my memory and keep it in the C tier. Like, I like it, but I don't love it. Honestly, it's good for their first try as a Barbie movie, but it stays in the C tier. I probably will watch it around Christmas time though. It is a bit of a Christmassy movie, but other than that, C tier. So the next movie on my list is Barbie as Rapunzel, that was released the year after the Nutcracker in 2002. Barbie as Rapunzel, in my opinion, is actually a really good adaptation of the tale. Like, obviously there is a few differences, but we still follow Rapunzel, who is kept in a manor behind a magic wall in a deep dark forest by Gothel. One day Rapunzel finds a tunnel in the basement that leads out into the village nearby, where she meets Stefan the prince. Here she meets Stefan the prince, but she has no idea he's the prince. This movie also has a nice subplot of two kings fighting, Stefan's dad, and plot twist, Rapunzel's dad. I really like this movie. Like, I appreciate it more now than I did as a kid. Like, for example, how cruel Gothel actually is. Like, as a kid I was like, ugh, this bitch is so mean, like, what the fuck. But now I'm like, oh shit, this is some serious emotional and psychological abuse going on. God, I love abusive mother villains. My favourite type. Speaking of appreciating stuff more as an adult, this movie score is mwah, French kiss. I think Rapunzel's theme actually might be some of the best music in the franchise. Like, it's just so good. I love it so much, and I think the whole like fandom loves it. As far as I know, it's just beautiful. As far as characters go in this movie, they actually are pretty good. But this is where they start introducing the talking animal trend in Barbie movies. Like, you have a paranoid bunny and a dragon with daddy issues. Yeah, you heard me. Forget also the most terrifying weasel slash ferret to ever be present on movie screens. I'm pretty sure I had nightmares about this thing as a kid. Like, he's horrifying! Aside from the animals, the characters in this movie are pretty good. Like, especially Rapunzel. She was so smart in this movie for never learning Stefan's name, so she wasn't lying to Gothel. Fair fucks to her, because I would have instantly lied without hesitation. Then, since she didn't lie, she wasn't affected by Gothel's spell that put on the terror that will never release your prisoner with a lying heart. Rapunzel never lied, so the spell didn't affect her. It's great. Like, fucking hell. Smart bitch. So for memory, I have this movie in the B tier, which I think is fair because it wasn't my favourite, but it went really hard when I was in the mood for it. So the Rapunzel stans will be happy to know that this movie is actually placing higher this time, and I'm going to put it in the A tier because I actually really do like this movie now. I appreciate it a lot more than I did as a kid, and honestly, I think the music alone is enough to bring it up for me. It's just incredible. I love it. Moving on to our third Barbie movie on this list, which was released in 2003. It's the same age as me. I don't like it. It's the same age as me, and it's another ballet adaptation, Barbie and Swan Lake. I really do appreciate the ballet adaptations because I feel like not a lot of people know the ballets or are even willing to give them a chance, but seeing that they're being made into movies actually makes me really happy because as a dancer I know the ballets, well, at least some of them, maybe not all, but just knowing that they're being made into movie adaptations really does make a dancer happy. This movie is actually a fairly faithful adaptation. Obviously some things had to be changed because the ending of the original ballet is actually fairly dark because both the main characters actually unalive themselves. So obviously that cannot happen in a Barbie movie. The movie follows our main character Odette, who works in the bakery in the village. She follows a unicorn into the enchanted forest where she pulls a crystal out of a tree to help the unicorn. Since she pulled the crystal out of the tree, she is the one destined to save the forest from the fairy queen's cousin Rothbard and his daughter Odile. Kind of like a Sword in the Stone situation here. Side note, Odile is actually voiced by Janice from Friends. It's the crossover no one asked for, but we didn't know we needed it until now. Remember when I said Barbie movies tend to use a lot of talking animals? Well, this movie has plenty of that. You have a sassy talking unicorn named Lila who says shit like meet the parents rare or everyone gets along rare. We have Carlita, the Spanish skunk that constantly gets migraines. We have a troll named Erasmus. So talk about diversity. Not to mention our protagonist is a swan for half the movie, so there's that. Motion capture was used once again for this movie because ballet adaptation makes me really happy. Like, I watch this movie now, I can see the individual ballet steps and I can most likely name them because it's just so clear that they use motion capture and it makes me really happy. And they use the score for the ballet as well, so the motion capture plus the score, nut. So young Kiki wasn't the biggest fan of this movie. I think this actually might have been the one where I watched it the least, and I was never really in the mood for it much. But I still recognise that it is a good movie, and I always knew it was a good movie, it just was never really my favourite. In the past I ranked this movie as a C tier, and I think I'm going to stick with my guns and it's going to stay there, where I acknowledge it's a really good movie, it's really pretty, the music's amazing, but it was just never my favourite. And when I watched it this time I was like, maybe it's just because I wasn't in the mood for it, but I think it's still in the C tier. But I do love me a good ballet adaptation. On to 2004 with the release of Barbie and the Princess and the Pauper. I'm going to confess something. I actually never owned this as a child. Yeah, I know. It's not that I didn't want to, it's just whenever it came to that time of the week where my parents would take me out to buy another DVD, I could just never find it. It was never there, so I just don't have this same emotional attachment that everyone else in the Barbie fandom has to this movie. I apologise in advance. The basic plot of this movie is that Princess Annalise wants to be free, marry whoever she wants and do what she wants, but she can't because she has to marry for the benefit of the kingdom. While all this is going on the other side of the kingdom, another girl, Erica, also wants to be free, but she is stuck and forced to work in Madame Carp's dress shop to pay off her parents' debts. All she wants to do is be free and become a singer and travel all over the world. While all this is going on, the Queen's advisor Preminger was actually stealing all the gold from the royal mines, putting the kingdom into bankruptcy. Preminger's plan is to present all the gold to the Queen and the Princess, saving the kingdom, and since the Queen will be ever so grateful, she will let Preminger marry the Princess. But since Preminger was away stealing all this gold, the Queen actually decided that Annalise is going to marry King Dominic for the benefit of the kingdom. Once Preminger finds out that the Queen actually made a decision without him, he decides to kidnap Annalise and hide her. Then, after a while, bring her back, and then since the Queen will be ever so grateful, he will be able to marry Annalise. This movie. The princess's best friend Julian discovers Preminger's plot and recruits Erica to pretend to be Annalise until they find Annalise and bring her back, since they look absolutely identical. Coincidence. My god, this movie. While Erica is pretending to be Annalise, she meets King Dominic and the two of them actually begin to fall in love. This movie is actually a musical and it has 7 original songs, and when I was actually watching this again for the first time in years, I actually found myself head bopping with it because the songs actually go really hard. So I may not have the same connection with this movie as everyone else does, but the music does do it right. It has one thing going for it, definitely. And there's more talking animals in this movie! Yay! To be fair, not all of them are absolutely insufferable, except for Preminger's poodle, who is from New Jersey and has a gold tooth for some reason. But who am I to judge, because my favourite song in this movie is about a cat that barks. Yeah, you heard me. A cat that barks, and his name is Wolfie, and he's trying his fucking best. And what musical is complete without the villain having extremely stupid henchmen and the villain song being an absolute banger? Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it. So I don't really have much more to say about this movie. Like, from memory it was an A tier, but I just don't think I have the nostalgia that everyone else has for this movie, so I think it's gonna be a B tier. I just don't have the nostalgia. Oh, the stands are not going to be happy about this. Jumping ahead to 2005 with the first Barbie movie that isn't an adaptation of something. It's time for Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus. I really did like this one as a kid. I'm not sure what it is about it, but it's just really comforting, and it just reminds me of being a kid. There was just something about it. I loved it so much. So the plot of this movie is that Princess Annika has to build a wand of light to defeat an evil sorcerer, Wenlock, who turned her parents and her subjects to stone after she refused to marry him. Annika is rescued by Brietta, a Pegasus, when all this is happening. Then she's brought to Cloud Kingdom, where she finds out that this isn't the first time Wenlock actually terrorized her family. She finds out that the Pegasus that saved her, Brietta, is actually her sister, who Wenlock turned into a Pegasus because Brietta also refused to marry him. So Brietta and Annika set out to build a wand of light and defeat Wenlock. Firstly, I just want to say I think this movie is absolutely fucking beautiful, with all the ice skating, the ice dancing, the idea of there just being a kingdom in the clouds and all the colours of the clouds, the sunrise, the sunset. It's just beautiful. I love it so much. Not to mention, in this universe, the reason that the clouds change colour when the sun rises and sets is because there's children riding Pegasuses. Pegasi? Doesn't matter. Children riding Pegasus painting the clouds for the sunrise and sunset. Now say what you want, I think that's fucking adorable. As well as this movie looking gorgeous, the score is actually really good as well. It's a mix of classical music and a mix of actual original Barbie stuff, and I think it just fits together perfectly and it just sounds really good. Now, this may come as a shock to some, but there's actually no talking animals in this one. I'm not going to count Brietta because Brietta is actually just a human that was turned into a Pegasus, but not talking animals. Who would have thunk it? With that being said though, we are introduced to one of the worst things in the Barbie fandom. One of the most hated creatures in this entire fandom. Shiver the polar bear. That fucking liability of a polar bear. As a kid, I was like, oh, she can do no wrong. She's so cute. But now I'm like, this fucking bear is gonna get them all fucking killed. Do not bring her on this mission. This is also the first movie where the love interest actually stands out. Like, all the rest of them were just kind of there, but in this one, Aiden. We love Aiden in this house. He's a king. He is so sarcastic and funny. We love him. Honestly, I think this movie was a lot of girls' introduction to enemies to lovers, and honestly, respect. So from memory, I think I put this movie in the B tier, but I think on rewatch I'm putting it in the C because I think it's a good movie, but I just don't love it as much as I used to. But it's still a good movie, so it belongs in the C tier. I said what I said. Now, still in 2005, we're actually moving on to a first in a trilogy, Barbie Fairytopia. Now this movie, I didn't watch it a lot as a kid, I just think it was like the weakest of the trilogy, so maybe that's why I didn't watch it that much, but I just didn't watch it a lot. It just wasn't really for me. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but I really do love these movies. It's just I prefer some to others. The story of this movie follows a wingless fairy named Elena. She just wishes she has wings so she could fly like everyone else. But when the enchantress's evil sister Laverna spreads a sickness across Fairytopia that takes away the fairy's power to fly, Elena is obviously unaffected by the sickness because she can't fly. She sets out to the closest fairy guardian to her, Azora. But when Azora then gets kidnapped, Elena has to face Laverna on her own. And despite Elena being offered what she wants most in the world, being wings, she doesn't accept, and then she defeats Laverna and she saves Fairytopia. But then in the end of the movie, the enchantress comes to Elena personally and she gives her her very own wings. So things work out. Not the biggest fan of this movie, but I do appreciate the painted background still. But they're still keeping that going in 2005. We love a good maternal character as well. Azora is just so sweet and so kind and so wise, and we should all aspire to be like her. And not to mention, her interior designing is mwah, chef's kiss. I would pay her to design my house. Her house is stunning. Now, not only is there talking animals in this movie, there's butterflies, there's gnomes, there's firebirds, which don't actually talk, but they look terrifying. And last but not least, we are introduced to Bibble. No, not the snack that Cat from Victorious is addicted to. Bibble. The face of the Gaslight Gatekeep Girl Boss tapestry / posters that you probably have seen on the internet sometimes. I need to get that tapestry. I love it so much. Anything Bibble related I need. Honestly, big main character energy from Bibble. He is the main character in this trilogy. I'm just saying. Okay, so from memory, this movie was in the D tier, and I honestly think it's going to stay there. Like, it has the potential to be in the C tier, but I just don't think I can place it in the C tier. So, it's in the D tier. I'm not sorry. Now into 2006, where multiple Barbie movies were released. The first being The Barbie Diaries. Oh god. Now, I hate bad-mouthing movies, especially Barbie movies, but this one just broke me. I couldn't do it. This is where I began to lose sanity. I realised I forgot to change the background for The Barbie Diaries, so if you saw that, you didn't. Okay, so firstly, the character design for this movie is really weird. It's like they were trying to make them look like the dolls that they were trying to sell, which just doesn't work because it just looks really weird and creepy. Like, up until this point, all the others looked fine. Like, they looked, I don't know, they just looked better. They just didn't look like the actual dolls, which I think is what you need, because otherwise they're just like really like stagnant and creepy. But it's fine, because after this movie was made, they actually went back to how the character design normally is. So I think they learned their fucking lesson. Don't try to change it. Like, take our mean girl Raquel, for example. She has blonde hair in this movie. It doesn't suit her. In every other depiction of Raquel, she has dark brown or black hair. It looks so much better, considering the doll that she is based on is meant to be Korean. The blonde, it ain't it. It ain't it. Not to mention, everyone looks the same in this movie. The only thing that's really like keeping people from looking different is the hair colours, and making Barbie and Raquel both blonde is a little confusing. Yeah, their hairstyles are different, but they're still both blonde. Like, it just doesn't work. I hate it. It does not work. Not to mention, this movie is crawling with tropes. Like, it's at the point where it's actually really fucking annoying. Like, don't get me wrong. Love me some tropes every now and again, but this is just too much. There's so many fucking stereotypes. I hate it. Not to mention, the guys in this movie were actually really creepy. Like, excuse me. Like, the guys are just really creepy. Like, Kevin was just videoing the cheerleaders practicing. not okay. And then that dickhead Todd being like, I have an image to protect. Like, what fucking image? You're a dickhead. This movie makes it seem that being popular is the be all and end all. Like, yes, it feels like that when you're in high school and a teenager, but this movie just does it completely wrong. It had me stressing out, and I'm 20 and I'm in college. It's just so bad. Like, this movie is the worst take on being a teenager ever. Like, at this point, just watch Mean Girls. It's a lot more realistic and just way better movie. It's just, I'd rather watch Mean Girls. I'd always rather watch Mean Girls than anything, but you get my point. I never owned this movie as a kid, and I'm happy I didn't. F tier. Thankfully, 2006 wasn't all bad because it was saved by Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. This one is definitely one of my favourite, and it always was. The basic plot of this movie is that the king feels that his 12 daughters aren't being proper princesses, so he calls in his cousin the Duchess to take charge of their upbringing. The Duchess comes in, starts being awful to them, taking away all the joy in their lives, music, dancing, singing, their hobbies, everything. Not to mention she's also after the throne, so she starts poisoning the king, slowly killing him. Can I just say though, 12 kids. God damn. In all seriousness though, the main theme for this movie is absolutely beautiful. Like, this is what I imagine you hear when you go into the afterlife. They also use classical music once again. Sorry. They also use classical music once again, and it's just beautiful. I love it so much. It's so hype. Like, they use original tracks as well, but I just love when they integrate classical music into it. It's just so beautiful. Motion capture is used for this movie once again because they're dancing constantly. They use ballet again, and between the motion capture and the music, it just looks perfect once again. Okay, it's been a while, but it's the long-awaited return of talking animals again. The only annoying one is the Duchess's pet monkey, Brutus, who's just a grade A asshole with an annoying voice. But then there's our main character, Genevieve's cat, which is amazing and so sweet. I love Twyla. I would die for Twyla. And then Felix the talking parrot, which is just a king. We love him. He's so funny. One of the things that does annoy me about this movie is that the fact they aren't seen as proper princesses because they have fucking hobbies. Like, yeah, I don't understand some, like, collecting bugs. Ugh, gross. But, like, the other ones, like singing, dancing, reading, horse riding, walking on fucking stilts. That's amazing. Fuck off with your proper princess bullshit. I wanna have fun with these girls. I wanna learn these hobbies. I've walked on stilts before. It's really fun. But the message of this movie is actually really sweet. It is, and I quote, big or small, there's a difference only you can make. And that, I don't know, it's just really sweet. It really moved me as a kid, and yeah, it's just really sweet. That, and listen to your fucking children when they tell you something's wrong and someone's being awful to them. Take notes, parents. Take fucking notes. From memory, this was in yes tier, and it's staying there because it held up. Nothing's changed. It just still holds up, and it's definitely one of my favorites. Another one from 2006 is Barbie Fairytopia, Mermaid, the second one in the Fairytopia trilogy. I need to fix this fucking brightness. Now, as a kid, I absolutely adored this movie. It was definitely one of my favourites. But recently I watched it about 5 times because it was the only one that was on Netflix for ages, and I just didn't have my DVDs with me, so I couldn't watch any other one. And I didn't want to go down the illegal route either. So, you know, I kind of wore myself out from this movie. Like, when I had to show my boyfriend this movie because I'm making him experience the art that is the Barbie franchise, I was kind of dreading it. But you know what? We did it, and we both enjoyed it. And I'm still giving it a fair ranking, so I'm not biased. This movie was interesting because we got a look into one of the other 7 realms of Fairytopia. Yeah, you heard me. There's 7. 7 realms. I kind of want to see movies with the rest of them, but you know what? I love Mermaid anyways. Like, Mermaid was touched upon in the first Fairytopia movie when Nalu the Merprince helped Alina and her friends escape the Firebirds. So the plot of this movie is that Prince Nalu has been kidnapped by Laverna's henchmen. The henchmen are after the immunity berry to give to Laverna. The immunity berry, if eaten by someone, they cannot be affected by any magic past, present or future. So you can imagine giving that to the villain of this series would be a pretty bad thing. So Nalu sends for Alina to come help him, and on the way, on her way to save Nalu, Alina is faced with a difficult choice. She has to give up her wings and trade them for a mermaid tail. Not good considering she just got her wings. But to save her friend Nori, she gives up her wings and trades them for a tail. Alina and Nori, after saving Nalu, give Alina a true self berry that helps her get her wings back, and they also switched the immunity berry for a true self berry, which they gave to Laverna, which had a very different effect on her, as you can imagine. I loved this movie as a kid. It has like such summery vibes because you spend the entire movie underwater with the coral. It's all like magically coloured. It's really bright, really beautiful. Even the berries that you see in this movie are very bright and colourful. It just has really nice summery vibes to it. This movie also has really interesting names for places. Like, there's a place called the Carousel of Confusion, which I think could be a metaphor for being in the closet. I said what I said. There's also a place called the Depths of Despair, and I quote, "No one's ever been down there, and if they have, they've never came back up to tell." Like, okay girl. This is also the movie that we're introduced to Max, Laverna's top henchman. You know Laverna means business when she has a top henchman, but how do we know that he's like in charge of them all? His uniform's different, guys. He wears purple. You gotta respect the purple uniform. Yeah, but the normal henchmen are just goofy. Like, the Carousel of Confusion scene had me in stitches as a kid, and I still think about it at least once a week. As for the characters in this movie, we are introduced to a few more side characters, like the Mer Fairies, like as by the name suggests, half mermaid, half fairy, Mer Fairy. There's Delphine the Oracle, which is just a giant snail that gives them the guidance that they need. We also get introduced to the other main character in this movie, Nori, who is like a blue-haired mermaid. And honestly, I never got the hype for Nori. Like, everyone says they have a crush on her. Like, yeah, it's like the blue-haired girl that everyone's obsessed with. Don't get it, but whatever. Like, they had a crush on this mermaid. I don't see it. I always found her kind of annoying because like how rude she was to Alina. And I'm not a fan of how fast she switches up, but it just feels off, but that's just my opinion. Just not a big fan of Nori. Like, she's fine, but don't get the hype. So I think this is gonna be a C tier movie. I think I just wore myself out of it so much that it can't be higher than that. And even like the first time I watched it, out of the 4, which has been years, which is for the first time in years, it was a C. Am I maturing? I don't like this. Yeah, as a kid it was definitely a B, but I think it's definitely a C now. God, I'm maturing, guys. What happened? 2 more movies were released in 2007, the first being the final installment of the Fairytopia trilogy, Barbie Fairytopia Magic at the Rainbow. Okay, this was definitely my favourite when it came to the Fairytopia trilogy. I just have such fond memories of this movie. I remember seeing a trailer for this on one of my other Barbie DVDs and going on the hunt for this movie, and when I finally found it, I remember rushing home to watch it, and I enjoyed every second of it. I'm pretty sure it was for my 3rd birthday, I got a scooter that was Magic at the Rainbow themed. I was absolutely fucking obsessed. It had like rainbow lights on the side and everything. I think maybe this is where my obsessions with rainbows started as a kid, but I'm just spitballing here. I could be totally wrong. The plot of this movie is that Alina is chosen by Azura to learn the Flight of Spring at the Crystal Palace, but Laverna is back and she wants to prevent the Flight of Spring happening, which will plunge Fairytopia into 10 years of winter. So Alina and the other apprentices have to buck up, get over themselves and learn the Flight of Spring. I really do love the opening for this movie. It's just a recap of the other 2 movies first, and then it cuts it doesn't cut, but like then it moves to Alina and Dandelion flying through the magic meadow, and the music that's playing, oh, it's so good. I'm absolutely obsessed. Also, side note, the tooth fairy is real in this universe. Anyone else find that unsettling? Like, they're fairies, but then there's a fairy out there who takes their teeth when it falls out. Like, is that not unsettling to anyone else? Also, there's a whole subplot of Bibble falling in love. This movie has everything. We get introduced to a lot of new characters in this movie, mainly being the other apprentices, who are all assholes, by the way, except for 3. The first one is named Fabian, who is a self-obsessed pretty boy who flies around shirtless and carries around 2 mirrors to look at himself. The second is named Shimmer, who is just a cow who is so rude to Alina, and get this, she doesn't even have real wings. She uses her hair as her wings. Get real wings, bitch. Fuck you. Lastly, there's the Nori-esque character named Sunburst, who is just so rude to Alina and so mean to her. And I don't get why everyone's obsessed with her again. Like, everyone loves her, and I'm like, why though? I beef with her, if anything. I don't get the hype. The other apprentices are just really nice. Then there's Gleam and Linda, which are really sweet, but my favourite has to be Lumina. She's a moon fairy, which she can read the future. Like me. Kind of. With my tarot cards. Roll your eyes and sigh all you want. Yes, I am one of those people. When it comes to the apprentices actually doing the Flight of Spring, I love the sequence so much. The music, the dancing, the drama that's happening at the moment, it's just yes, because the whole flight's at stake. Memory serves, I had it in the A tier, and I think I agree with myself, it's staying in the the A tier. I just really like this movie and it just deserves its place there. Next movie on the list is Barbie as the Island Princess. This movie is a musical. All the original songs go so hard. Like, I remember on the DVD they had this like karaoke game where you could sing all the songs. Best believe I ate and left no crumbs. The score is amazing, especially the music that plays during the opening credits. Like, I actually wanted that to be the song for my first dance at my wedding. My mind has since changed, but the thought was there. Not only is this one a musical, it actually gives such summer vibes. Like, the thing takes place on a tropical island, and even when they leave the island, it's still such summer vibes. The colours, the flowers, the sky, the water, just everything. I want to live here. We have a varied range of characters in this movie, both human and not human. Yes, the return of the talking animals, woohoo, which we all know and love. Mostly. With the human characters, the main character Ro is just trying to find her family because she got shipwrecked and stuck on the island. She got rescued by the Prince Antonio and came back with him to civilization. Prince Antonio is betrothed to Princess Luciana, as he found out when he got back from saving Ro. Antonio is actually in love with Ro because they're more similar and they share interests. Antonio was so in love with Ro that he was willing to give up the kingdom and let his sisters run the kingdom, which is really sweet, I think. Princess Luciana is a romantic. She just wants to marry for love. We need to protect her at all costs. I love her so much. Antonio's parents, they're fine, except for the dad. The dad really pissed me off as a kid and now. Like, is it really that hard for some parents to just let your child be happy and marry who they want? Apparently so. As for the villain, Queen Ariana, which is Luciana's mother, gotta love the abusive parent villain. Gotta love it. Gotta respect how much effort she put in her plan though. Like, you really do. Psst. I actually have a Barbie villains video in the works at the moment where I actually go into depth of all the Barbie villains and their crimes they committed, and I put them into a tier list by how bad they are, how evil they are. So have a look out for that, because that's in the works at the moment. As for the talking animals in this movie, they have created 2 gay dads, Azul the peacock and Saji the red panda. They are the gay dads we all need in our lives. They are so supportive and we love them both. There's Tallulah, the albino monkey that has more table etiquette than I ever will because she was brought up in the palace as the queen's pet. We love her though, she's so sweet. There's also Queen Ariana's 3 rats who sing an absolute banger song about cheese that make me want to devour an entire block of cheese with olives and crackers. Who knew? And finally, last and definitely least, Tika, the Miley Cyrus elephant. Definitely the most toxic character next to Queen Ariana in this movie. Everyone, I mean everyone, hates this godforsaken elephant in the Barbie fandom. If you like Tika, you're toxic. We are not friends. Like, Tika is the kind of friend that the second you get into a relationship, they start getting pissed off because you're not spending enough time with them. Oh my god. Tika is the kind of friend that would just never be happy for your successes ever. They would somehow find a way to make it about them. Tika is that friend. As you can tell, I'm really worked up with this elephant. I hate this fucking... Past me decided that this was a C tier, but I think this deserves to move up a tier and go into the B tier because it just reminds me of summer as a kid, and honestly the music in this movie and the story is really nice, I think. So aside from Tika, this movie's pretty good. Now we're on to 2008, which I think is one of the best years for the Barbie movies, with the first movie being released, Barbie Mariposa and her butterfly fairy friends. This is a huge favourite of mine. This movie was definitely one of the Barbie movies I watched most as a kid. Like, I have a core memory of seeing the trailer for this movie on another one of my Barbie DVDs, and I remember thinking it looked so pretty, so naturally I have to get the movie. This movie is actually a Fairytopia spin-off, and it actually opens with Bibble, our king, getting ready to go see Dizzle, his love. But he decides last second that he doesn't want to go because he's scared that he won't fit in with Dizzle's friends, which is really sad. So to help him get over this, Alina tells him the story of Mariposa, who lives in a land called Flutterfield that was cut off from the rest of Fairytopia. Mariposa actually feels like an outcast herself. She feels like she doesn't fit in because she doesn't like parties, she's uncomfortable at parties, and like she just rather spend time by herself and like read a book. So when you think about it, Mariposa was made for the introverts. While Mariposa's at a party working for 2 other fairies, she runs into another fairy who's reading the same book as her. They get talking and she finds out his name is Andreas. Mariposa then gets called away by the other fairies and she leaves. Later that night, Andreas actually shows up at her house and tells her that he's actually the prince and he needs her help. His mother has been poisoned and he gives Mariposa a map to the antidote. He then tells her that the royal guards are after him to lock him up for his own protection. He trusts Mariposa with the map with the antidote because he knows she is the only other fairy in Flutterfield that has knowledge of the outside world because she reads books, essentially. She's smart, so she knows about the outside world. So the prince gets captured like later on and Mariposa has to go get the antidote. Now, a big thing for me about this movie is the score. I think it's absolutely beautiful. The main theme, the theme for the mermaids, the cave of reflection, everything. It's just beautiful. Speaking of the cave of reflection, I love that sequence. For context, the girls go into a cave and their reflections start taunting them. For example, the 2 twins that Mariposa's with, they act towards them the way they did towards other people before they developed self-awareness. Mariposa's reflection makes her doubt herself and gives her anxiety, much like she had before they went on the journey. I think that's pretty powerful. Like, imagine being taunted by your own reflection of how you were in the past before you matured. Ugh, I'd hate that. Not to mention the colours in this movie are absolutely stunning. Like, this movie focuses a lot on stars and constellations and they just make everything look so beautiful. Like, at the end of the movie, Mariposa gets a whole celestial makeover, and I think they'd be in big trouble if they couldn't make that look nice, since the movie's like based a lot around stars and constellations. I blame this movie for my obsession with space and stars. This was actually probably my gateway to discovering astrology. I'm finding out a lot of things about myself today. Wow. Okay. I also really like the villain in this one. Her name's Hannah. She may not be the strongest villain in the whole franchise, but gotta give credit where it's due. She does have the best evil villain smirk. Also, not to mention her henchmen, the Skeezites, are so big and stupid and they make me giggle every time, so. The message of this movie is actually really sweet as well. The basic message is the best thing you can be is yourself, and that is very much true, and I'm so happy I had this movie telling me that at a young age, because by God did I need it later in life, and I'm very happy I grew up watching this movie, because I don't think I would have matured the way I did if I didn't have that. So for memory, I actually put this movie in A tier, but I think this genuinely deserves to be bumped up to the S tier. I'm officially declaring this an S tier candidate. I don't make the rules. It just deserves it to be up there. Next movie I'm going to be talking about is a fan favourite, Barbie and the Diamond Castle. I watched this one religiously as a kid. Like, I'm pretty sure when I got this movie, I watched it every night before bed for at least 2 weeks. I am not kidding, I loved it. The story follows two girls, Liana and Alexa, who live together in a cottage and they sell flowers to get by. One day they help an old beggar woman, which gives them a mirror in return. They later find out that a girl, Melody, is actually trapped inside the mirror. She got trapped in there because she was fleeing a flying serpent and his mistress. They're after the key to the Diamond Castle, which Melody is now the only person who has it. So Liana and Alexa agree to get Melody to the Diamond Castle, where she can unlock the Diamond Castle and play the magical instruments that will break Lydia's spells. Now, since this movie is based around music, it would make sense that it's a musical. And I will say that the songs in this movie are certified bops. Like, I haven't watched this movie in years. And then when I was rewatching all these movies, when I got to this one, it was as if it was muscle memory. I remembered all the words of the songs. And if that's not a good sign, then I don't know what is. The fan base of this movie likes to say that this is the gayest Barbie movie there is. And I agree, because they are literally cottagecore lesbians. They are best friends, living in a cottage, selling flowers to get by. During the movie, about halfway, they literally get swept away from the love interests on a rainbow bridge. Subtle. But no guys, they're just best friends, don't worry about it. No wonder 90% of the fan base of this movie is within the LGBT plus community. This is the shit we grew up with. I will go on record and say that the love interests, the twins, are fine. I love them. I just want to say though that Lydia's magic flute, like when you actually think about it, it's terrifying. For those who don't know, it has the same effect as the Imperious Curse in Harry Potter. She plays the flute, person goes into a trance, she can get them to do whatever they want. It's so dark when you think about it. Like she literally plays the flute and tells the two girls to drown themselves. Also, what Barbie movie would be complete without those dancing dogs? Which became a huge meme a couple months back. I don't know if some of you know, but it was a big thing on TikTok. There's two dogs. Shit names for dogs too. One's called Sparkles. Who the fuck names a dog Sparkles if you aren't 4 years old? And the second one's called Lily. Basic. Thank you, next. I said what I said. If you named your dogs either of those two names and you're not 4 years old, judging. So all in all, this movie has a really cute story of friendship, or friendship, depending on how you want to interpret it. It's up to you. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this movie is an S tier and always was an S tier. For me, it was always that. Now, everyone knows the tale of the Christmas Carol, and if you don't, first of all, how? Second of all, educate yourself. It is more or less the same. It does more or less follow the original tale. There's just a few differences. Instead of it being Ebenezer Scrooge, it's Eden Sterling. Instead of being in charge of a counting house, she's a Victorian opera singer. So, you know, minor differences. Eden being a Victorian singing star, she takes her career really seriously due to the way she was brought up by her aunt. Due to her upbringing, she is very selfish because her aunt constantly pushed the idea of, in a selfish world, the selfish succeed. Due to her upbringing, Eden wants everyone in the company to work Christmas Day, including her best friend Catherine, who is the costume designer for the company. The cast members say to Catherine, please talk to Eden, she'll listen to you, we don't want to work Christmas Day. And to be honest, I wouldn't either. Catherine goes to talk to Eden, but then this ends up backfiring and Eden tells them all to come into work on time the next day or they will all be fired. Similar to the original tale, Eden gets visited by 4 spirits that night. The first being her Aunt Marie warning her that she's going to be visited by 3 other spirits to help her change her ways due to her selfishness, otherwise she will meet the same fate as her aunt, covered in change, forced to carry them for all eternity. During the visits of each spirit we see different stages of Eden's life and why she turned out the way she did. During the visit of the spirit of Christmas past, we see Eden's childhood and how she was treated by her aunt, constantly pushing the idea of, in a selfish world, the selfish succeed. Also preventing her from celebrating Christmas with her friend Catherine. And it's just really sad to see a child go through something like that. We see Eden sneaking out of the house after her aunt falls asleep to go visit Catherine and her family and celebrate Christmas with them. She goes to Catherine's house and they begin celebrating and having so much fun and all that. Now this went over my head as a kid, but when Eden's aunt shows up, Eden's begging the spirits like, take us back, I don't want to see this. Eden's aunt shows up and all you see is, where's Eden? They get her out of there. Then it cuts to Eden sitting on the bed in the fetal position, telling the spirit how after her aunt showed up, she screamed at Eden in front of everyone and then proceeded to scream at Catherine and her family right after that. It went right over my head as a kid. But now that I'm older and I'm more mature than that, I realise how much trauma that would actually put on a person. And it's right there in a Barbie movie. To me, that was the moment where I realised Eden wasn't actually a bad person. It was all the upbringing from the aunt and the abuse she endured as a kid that made her the way she is. For the Spirit of Christmas Presents visit, we see all the cast members talking shit about Eden. They even try to get Catherine involved in this, but Catherine refuses. We then see Catherine helping out a local orphanage by making costumes for the kids' Christmas play. The kids are asking, oh, is Eden coming? Is Eden coming? They're dying to meet Eden. Catherine tells them no, she couldn't make it, but she tells them Merry Christmas, even though Eden obviously didn't do that because bit of a diva. Eden is then devastated to find out that the orphanage isn't making enough money and chances are it will be closed down. It's here we see Eden's character shift towards the better, but not entirely yet. For the Ghost of Christmas Future, which by the way is the least terrifying adaptation there is to ever exist, I think. She shows Eden her future, but before they go, they're in limbo. While they're in limbo before they go, Eden is asking why there's so many holes in the walls and why it's so cold. The spirit replies, it's cold because you're about to make a very cold choice. And the holes are paths that you can take differently, are the different paths that you can take. Eden chooses to see the cold decision that she's about to make because she's convinced it's the right one. Because you have to be selfish in the selfish world, selfish succeed. The spirit then shows her that Eden lost all her money and she's very poor. And she's living in a one-room house which is very cold with her cat. And turns out Catherine's the one that's gotten famous, and she sees a flyer that Catherine's coming to town again. So she decides to go visit Catherine because she thinks Catherine's going to help her. Upon meeting Catherine, she realises that Catherine has turned really selfish. Extremely selfish, the same way Eden was when in the past. Catherine doesn't help Eden and throws her out. Eden then decides that she wants to change for the better. The next morning, Eden wakes up and she changes her mind. Changes her mind and she decides to not be selfish anymore. She goes to Catherine to help the orphans, and she makes sure the orphanage doesn't shut down. And everything turns out okay. The music in this movie is really nice, and all the carols are sang beautifully, and it's just a really good Christmas movie. I genuinely think this is my favourite adaptation of the tale. One of my favourite adaptations anyways. And I will definitely be watching this around Christmas time. I think this will have to be an A-tier movie. There is no question about it. I don't know what I was thinking putting this movie in the C tier the last time. Okay, into 2009 we have Barbie Presents Thumbelina. This movie is the epitome of rich people suck and are the reason for the downfall of our society. Basically, the story follows Thumbelina and the Twillerbees, who are one with nature and want to protect it. Sounds fine and happy, right? Wrong. As it turns out, the field that the Twillerbees live in has been bought by a couple of rich people who want to destroy it and turn it into a site for their factory. Oh, and did I mention this is happening 2 days before the baby Twillerbees are due to be born? So yeah, not ideal. Not to mention they just dug up a patch of flowers that Thumbelina and her friends were still in and brought it to the city to give to their spoilt young daughter McKenna, who was just trying to one-up her friend Violet, who was just gifted a whole entire island by her parents. Yeah, McKenna, an indoor flower field is way better than a whole island. So Thumbelina and her friends are going to try and stop the rich people from building their factory there. So to do that, they're going to try and get McKenna to stop her parents from building her factory there. McKenna agrees to this under the condition that Thumbelina makes her one-of-a-kind handbags out of leaves. While Thumbelina is dealing with the rich people, the other Twillerbees are sabotaging the construction workers and not allowing them to dig or break ground. I kind of feel bad for them because they're just trying to do their job and they're being sabotaged by tiny little things. At the end of the movie, McKenna's parents realise they're doing wrong and they decide not to build their factory there, and they turn it into a nature reserve instead. This movie's message is actually really cute. It's how the smallest people can make the biggest difference, and it's all about protecting the environment and nature, which I wholeheartedly agree with, given we're on the brink of since the world is on the brink of becoming a dystopian hellscape. Dystopian industrial hellscape, given the way the corporations are treating the world. Anyways, this movie is a C tier just for the message alone. Everything else is only fine. It's nothing amazing, I just like the message. In the past it was an F tier, so it's doing pretty well now. Still in 2009 we have Barbie and the Three Musketeers. I really do like this one. It's actually the first one I showed my boyfriend, but I found out that he actually hadn't seen any of the Barbie movies, so I thought this would be a good starting point. The story follows Corinne, who grew up in the countryside in France, who always dreamed of being a musketeer like her father D'Artagnan. Nice little nod to the original tale just there. Corinne and her mother had an agreement when she turned 17 she could move to Paris and begin her training as a musketeer. When she gets to Paris, she's laughed at because girls can't be musketeers and they obviously cannot possess the proper skills to be musketeers. She ends up working in the castle where she meets Vivica, Aramina and Renee. And after a freak accident when the chandelier nearly kills the prince, they discover that they all actually wanted to be musketeers. So as it turns out, the freak accident with the chandelier wasn't actually a freak accident, but it was actually an assassination attempt to kill the prince, ordered by the regent, who felt that he should be crowned king in a week instead of his cousin the prince. Oh, by the way, the regent is voiced by Tim Curry, and he carries this role once again. Second time the charm is a Barbie villain. And he does great every time. The girls begin their training with Madame Helene, an older woman who works in the castle and who also wanted to be a musketeer when she was younger. They improve their skills greatly, and they discover the plot to assassinate the prince at his masquerade ball before his coronation. They tell the captain of the Musketeers about this, and the Regent shuts it down instantly, resulting in the girls getting fired, banned from the castle and the ball. The girls refuse to let this happen, and they sneak it into the ball, and they manage to stop the assassination attempt of the prince, and a dramatic final battle happens. This movie does fight scenes and training montages really well, both of which are paired with amazing song choices. Barbie and her friends kick some misogynistic ass, and it's the best thing ever. This movie does feminism right, but for some reason isn't easy to do, because every movie nowadays just does it wrong. This movie invented feminism. Hollywood, take notes. Also, side note, I do not agree with the love interest in this movie because he's big misogynist, and I'm happy Kerner and her friends rode off into the sunset after becoming musketeers, and she did not have any time for him. This movie, I think, deserves to be in the B tier because every time I watch this I feel really good after it, and I genuinely feel like I could sword fight God after watching this movie. So in the B tier it goes. It was in the A tier before because I didn't own this one myself, and I only ever got to watch it really rarely, so maybe that's why I thought I deserved to be in the A tier, but no, I think it's good in the B tier. Diving into 2010 with the release of Barbie in a Mermaid Tale. This movie has some serious summer vibes. It's all about summer and surfing, obviously. Like, this movie makes me wish I was better at surfing. I can surf, but I'm not that good. We get the certified banger that is Queen of the Waves, which was trending briefly on TikTok a couple months back, much like a few Barbie clips that were taken out of context, but I don't mind that. The story follows Maria Summers, who was one day out in the waves, and as she out in the waves surfing, then her hair started to turn pink. Shocked by this, after the meet she dives into the water, where she was approached by a pink dolphin that talks to her, telling her that she could breathe underwater. Maria tries this and it works. The dolphin then says to her she'll see her soon and that her friends are looking for her, and the dolphin swims off. Maria then goes home after that and tells her grandfather about the hair and the breathing underwater. Her grandfather tells her that that's normal because she's actually a mermaid. Maria obviously doesn't believe him. Then her grandfather then tells her the story of how she came to him. Maria's mother came to the grandfather, and since Maria was born with legs, she couldn't live in the ocean. So she gave Maria to her grandfather. Gave Maria to her grandfather along with her protective necklace. Maria doesn't believe the story at all, and she storms out. Maria tells the story that her grandfather told her to her friends. Her friends think she's crazy. One friend thinks she's crazy, the other one is feeding into it. They get approached by the dolphin again, and the dolphin speaks to them. Maria then gets frustrated by this, and she throws her necklace on the ground. Her necklace breaks, and suddenly an image of her mother bursts out. Maria is shocked to see her mother, and then she agrees to go down to the ocean to find her. As Maria is going on this journey to find her mother and save the ocean from her aunt, Maria accepts her mermaid self, and at the end she gets a real mermaid tail. She frees her mother, and her mother gives her a necklace that allows her to change from human and mermaid anytime she wishes. This movie is really summery and vibey, and honestly it deserves to be, because it's just a really nice movie about accepting yourself, and sometimes evil's in your family. Still in 2010 we're introduced to Barbie, a fashion fairy tale. Now this movie is something else, and it's the only way I can put it. Basic plot of the movie is that Barbie gets fired from a movie she's working on because the director is a big misogynist and Barbie doesn't agree with what he's doing. The movie she was working on was The Princess and the Pea, and the director kept wanting to change the story to make it trendy. We literally see in the movie that he wanted to add in zombies because zombies were trending. Barbie obviously doesn't agree with this and voices her opinion, and then the director gets threatened because he thinks she's coming for his job, so he fires her. Barbie goes back to her trailer and starts packing up her things. She then gets a phone call from Ken. He then breaks up with her. But later we find out it wasn't actually Ken that was talking to her, it was Raquel pulling the strings, and she made it sound like Ken broke up with Barbie. Barbie has then had enough with this, and she jets off to Paris to visit her Aunt Millicent just to get away from everything. When Barbie gets to Paris to her aunt's fashion house, she finds out that the place is going to be gutted within the week because She's selling up shop and retiring and moving to the countryside. Barbie's a little bit upset by this, but she doesn't want to get in the way of her aunt's happiness, so she lets it. So she helps her pack up. Barbie meets Elise, which is Millicent's, one of Millicent's designers. They find an abandoned wardrobe up in the attic as they're clearing out, and turns out the house is the Fairies, not fairies, Fairies. They're fashion fairies that help designers all over the world as long as they inspire them by making their clothes like really pretty and sparkly. They find out if the fashion house gets gutted, the Fairies will lose their power and they won't be able to help anyone anymore. So they devise a plan to design and sell a entire fashion line by the end of the week to save the fashion house, just to get out of the contract. The plan is to hold a fashion show at the end of the week and hopefully they raise enough money to save the fashion house. Oh, by the way, while all this is happening, Ken is trying to do a big romantic gesture by coming to Paris to tell Barbie how much he loves her, but everything's going wrong for him. This movie made me want to be a fashion designer so badly, with my little like top model books with my little designs to them. Turns out it's a lot harder than you think, trying to think of designs that no one else has thought of yet. I don't know how Elise did it, but I would wear everything that's designed in this movie. The characters in this movie are grand. Barbie is serving as always. Elise is so sweet and we love her and we're rooting for her. And Millicent is an icon. If I'm anything like her at her age, I can die happy. She's just trying out every hobby out there, and as she should. Ken is a himbo in this movie, but honestly he's trying his best. He's just trying to get to Paris to tell Barbie how he feels and everything's just going wrong for him. He's trying. The villain Jacqueline isn't even a bad person. Honestly, I think she's just a metaphor for fast fashion and big corporations ripping off actual designers and just making money out of it and spending all their money on advertising, which is what she does. But she gets redeemed in the end, so it's okay. Oh yeah, there's talking animals in this movie again. But not just talking animals. They're dogs. And the dogs are designers. Respect. Although I'm not a fan of the not so cleverly named Jack Russell, Jacques Rousseau. Like, are you even trying, Mattel? Barbie in a Fashion Fairy Tale is also where you find out that that every Barbie movie is connected. It's a Barbie cinematic universe. That every single movie Barbie was just an actress in, because you see posters for Mermaid Tale in Fashion Fairy Tale in her trailer. It's just so cool and so bizarre. This movie has a cute message of go follow your passion wherever it takes you. Thank you, Barbie. I will. Movie was fine, so it deserves a C, and I think I gave it a B before, so a little bit of a downgrade, but it's still an enjoyable movie. Flying on into 2011, we have Barbie: A Fairy Secret. The plot of this is that Ken gets kidnapped by Princess Graciela and her attendants because she's been slipped a love potion and she thinks she's in love with Ken and she wants to marry him. So it's up to Barbie and Raquel to go and save Ken before sunset, before Graciela marries him, otherwise he'll be stuck there forever. This movie is not great. There isn't a lot to remember, and I just remember it being better when I was a kid. Excuse me. Character-wise, Princess Graciela is mid. She just kind of annoyed me the whole time. Raquel is a bit of a cow, but she's not as bad as Nori or Sunburst, so, you know, we'll leave it. Barbie was just being Barbie the whole time. Really not much left to say, but I did enjoy how Raquel called Barbie out on being a Mary Sue. Ken was the ultimate himbo in this, but we're going to love him and leave him alone because he had a long day in this movie. Like, how would you feel if you were kidnapped by a group of fairies and you didn't know what the fuck was going on and you were trying to force to get married to one of them? Probably wouldn't like it. Carrie and Taylor, Barbie's stylists, the other main characters in this movie, they're fine. There's nothing great about them. They're just fine. Crystal, she's bland. She's not a great villain. Like, she had such a good motive, but it was just executed really poorly. Like, it had potential, but it just wasn't it. Like, there isn't really much else to say, so I'm just going to slap this movie straight into the D tier. I think I remember putting it in the C tier, so oof. Still in 2011, we're on to Barbie Princess Charm School. We follow the main character Blair Willows as she tries to make ends meet to support her sick mother and sister. When she gets chosen to attend Princess Charm School, she accepts because she just wants to make a life better for her family. When she gets to Princess Charm School, she struggles hard and she's faced with the mean girl Delancey Devon and her awful mother Dame Devon. She makes friends with two girls, Hadley and Isla, and with the headmistress tutoring her, she She unlocks her true princess potential and is heading for graduation. Towards graduation, we find out that Blair could be the missing Princess Sophia, who was supposedly killed in a car crash 17 years ago. The girls set out to find proof that Blair is actually the Princess Sophia to stop Delancey from getting crowned at the graduation. This movie I liked. It had not one but 2 dance sequences, and it has a really catchy opening theme. All the characters are good in this movie, and there's not a Mary Sue in sight. Thank God. Not to mention there's a training montage with another really catchy song. Also, I really like how there's Easter eggs like hidden throughout the movie in references to see the other Barbie movies. Like, you literally see the Nutcracker from the Nutcracker movie in the cellar of the castle. This movie also has a really nice message of how there's a princess in every girl and there's no need for a crown. And there's a cute dog in this movie that doesn't talk, so like bonus points. I also really like in this movie how there's parallels to Princess Diana in this, and also their school uniforms in this are so cute. Like, I wish our school uniforms were like that. All the characters in this movie are really good. Like, Blair goes through character development and gets her arc and gains confidence through the movie. Delancey gets her redemption, and you know, she realizes the world's not all about her. Dame Devon is an amazing villain, a horrible person, amazing villain, and Portia is just a PG stoner, and I'm just here for it, and I love her. Honestly, this movie is just really fun. It's such a confidence booster. Like, I would so ace Princess Charm School. So I think this movie deserves a C, but it can be a B, so I'm gonna give it a C. It just depends on your mood. Still in 2011, we have a holiday special of Barbie: A Perfect Christmas. Think the plot to every Christmas movie ever. You're probably correct. Barbie and her sisters were meant to fly to New York City for Christmas, but then a snowstorm cancels their flight, so their plane is scheduled for an emergency landing. They drive until they come to an inn. It's late and they just want a place to stay. At first they're sad about their flight being cancelled and Christmas being ruined, but then the message of this movie is that you can have a perfect Christmas wherever you are. It's just your basic Christmas movie. It's nothing really special. If I was in the mood for a Christmas movie, I'd put on Home Alone or something. And if I was in the mood for a Barbie Christmas movie, I'd put on Barbie: A Christmas Carol. Like, it's just so mid. But I will give credit where it's due. The original songs are really catchy and the Christmas decorations are really pretty. Like, the interior of the inn that they're staying in, if my house is big enough, I definitely have my house looking like that. But yeah, they also have sibling relationships down to a T in this movie. I especially felt Stacey and Chelsea's relationship because I have a younger sister and I genuinely felt the nagging. I've been through that situation. It's just... As much as I love Christmas movies, this one just isn't it. D tier. It was in the C tier, but D. Now, swimming into 2012 with our last movie, most definitely not least, we have Barbie in A Mermaid Tale 2. This takes place a year after the first movie. Marie is after qualifying for the Surfing World Championships in Australia. When she goes to tell her mother about it, she finds out that the surf meet is actually the same day as the changing of the tide ceremony, which gives a member of the royal family the power to make Marilia, which is the life of the sea, keeps it alive, keeps it healthy. You get the gist. Marilia's mother wants her there at the ceremony, but Marilia is dead set on going to the surf meet, which I think is fair because she's only been a mermaid for a year, where she's been surfing her whole life. They have a fight and then Marilia swims off, which I think is fair. But the changing of this tide ceremony is put in jeopardy after Marilia's surfing rival Kylie accidentally frees Eris, putting the whole sea in danger. So it's up to Marilia and Kylie to stop Eris from getting to the throne so she can't make Marilia. I think the sequel's better than the original. I just enjoy watching it more. I would be in the mood to watch this one more than I would the first one. I don't know. It has another original song in it called Do the Murray, but I think Queen of the Waves is better because it's more dancey. This one's just kind of whatever. As well as that, all the swimsuits that are featured in this movie are so pretty. I would wear absolutely every single one of them. I love how they throw in classic movie references, like when Zuma the talking dolphin is trying to break up Merlia and Callista's fight. She's like, Merlia, wanna catch a movie? Karate Squid? Raiders of the Lost Carp? Starfish Wars! Like, I don't know, it made me giggle. Also, I think Eris is a lot more terrifying in this movie because in this movie she came up with a new spell that makes your deepest, darkest nightmares appear right in front of you. Which is, you know, horrifying. Don't know what I'd see, but I don't want to stick around to find out. I just like how Merlia and Kylie put aside their differences for the sake of the whole ocean. It's just nice. But for the love of God, the voice actor who plays Kylie, who's meant to be Australian, the voice actor isn't Australian, and her Australian accent isn't good either. It's awful. For fuck's sake. I'm pretty sure she's British, for fuck's sake. So I think it's similar to the first movie with the summer vibes, but I think I just prefer the story of the second one. Like, I love how Merlia is finally accepting her fullest merself and she realizes that she is both mermaid and human to her full extent. I just prefer the story of the second one because I just really like how Merlia learns that her fullest merself is both human and mermaid. It's just really sweet. That's it. That's all of them. Not gonna lie, my brain is melted from the amount of Barbie content that I've consumed over the last couple weeks to months. But with the live action one coming out soon, I figured it was only right. And there's probably more Barbie content coming for me soon, just so I do have more Barbie tier lists coming, so be prepared for that. Who knows, maybe I might rank the newer Barbie movies that have come out in recent years. Oh god. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if there is another franchise you think I should make tier lists out of. I have plenty more content planned and will be coming out soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed hearing my opinions on the early 2000s Barbie movies that we all grew up with. If you did, make sure you hit that like button to let the algorithm know I'm doing good things, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button to be notified when I decide to bless the internet with my presence again. So I'll be seeing you guys real soon. Bye! Oh my god.